Hello, community. Let me get the picture set up, get it lined up, ready to work. Okay. Today, sitting in choice, choosing your genius, passion, heart, so that we live the life we love, creating choices for a life worth living by getting around having to know. This is what I create us to be aimed for. To live our good life requires having requires letting go of needing to know, having to know. Best that I can explain this is through the choice map developed by Change Your Questions, Change Your Life, Marilee Adams at inquiryinstitute.com. Great gratitude for this simple book, um, helping me notice more of the now in the present now. You could say that being more self-aware. So yes, that would be, I would lump that into that if you chose to. And in that is just a demonstration of our reaction versus our learner path. Part of the choice map is always now, is no matter what you're feeling, whatever your thought, whatever your perturbation, whatever you notice, you either you have a choice. It's not in our background to think of it that we have a choice, because our beautiful system just responds, just reacts to it. And the more that we do this, our conscious brain validates and judges that, and we find more of that we are seeking. So as we take our choice in the moment, we automatically react with a judger mentality, a judger path. Automatically, without noticing it, we fall into these loops: the problem solving loop, the victim loop, all sorts of loops. And really, like, a part of this is what I'll call here, pay attention to, um, our uncomfortable patterns. We have uncomfortable patterns that we'll avoid, judger being one of them. And so what it is for you to explore your judger in your automatic loop. We're all in these automatic loops. And I mean, as much as you tell yourself you're not, that's probably where you need to look the most. You'll find what you're looking for in that you resist the most. And most of the time, what that is it shows up as we see scared self in other people. That is our scared self coming out. And in that we can forgive that out there is where we can begin to forgive that in here. And that's just so much more fun in the long term. Like, not in the short term. Our short-term brain likes the quick hits, which means that we avoid the situation because we're so used to it. So we'll avoid it, and that releases satisfaction, so that we forget about that we were triggered by. And that can be like, that happens in a lot of good places, but there's also places that it can be bad. And it's around what we're going for, the life that we're living, the life that we're after, the passion, the heart, the belief, the genius that's inside of us, that's guiding us, saying, go for this, you can do it, you can do it. And then a fear-based brain from our digestive system that says, no, afraid, fear, scared, don't change. And that is our automatic system that is afraid of change. And all it does is feel things it doesn't understand it. And it's there to feel, to keep us safe. And so what are we doing between three different languages that we're working to listen to? And one of them is the captain, and the captain has to be on board, has to believe that, oh, I might listen to my crew, which is our automatic pilot. I might pay attention to, like, oh, yes, There's other parts of me. So that is what like the introduction here is around that in the choice map. And so um, here's the choice map that I was referring to. And here's anytime that you can notice the now, this is where you would start. And the now could be um, oh, what was I going to do? Was I going to react? Here's a big one. Am I going to react to it, or am I going to choose? Here, am I going to create is another one to put here. Like, oh, am I going to invent something, like create something different? Am I going to choose something different rather than just react to the situation, react to the feeling, react to it? And ways that you know that you've fallen down, or sorry, not fallen down, that you are going down the judger path is whose fault is it, is one of them. Um, so that's blame. Who am I judging is one for me. That was my first one. Is like, oh, who am I judging? Judging myself, judging others. Who, like, what does a judger feel like for me? And it was like validation for me. It was seeking validation for myself, and then everybody else was against me, and so that was just feeding my validation, my judging of myself to go for more, to be bigger, was hiding my main personality of an alpha personality that was not so quite on board all the way, but eventually has been. Um, but what it was the judger path, where judger and validating not only of myself, would I see that as the threat out in the world. And that was what I was afraid of and scared of. And so when I went into it, yes, it was scary stepping into it and facing all of those fears. But when it was done, it was like the lesson is like, oh, the lesson was so beautiful. The lesson is so beautiful. It's like, oh, it was just freeing, allowing myself to go do what's next. And so there's a place where you can switch lanes. That's called the switching lanes, is when we notice we can, like where we're choosing now, we can be choosing down this way. And that's usually where we find ourselves in this spaghetti, in this language, in this world of all these categories that are happening around us called life. We're all on different points of the path here. And our tendency, what my tendency was to fall down. And all of us, I think all of our tendencies are down this reactive path, to be like, oh, not just to keep doing this thing over and over and over again to produce the judger pit, right? Of like, oh, why am I a failure, and into these loops. They're all different degrees, guys. They're just all different degrees, but they're just, we all have our vices in them. We all have our uncomfortable patterns that we are avoiding, that really we need to go into. And again, this is listening to our ego brain. Really, it's like we know that one really well. I've listened to that one for all of my life. But really, before that was for the first 7 years, I was working with my fear, with my feelings, and the other one that I was working with was the genius. So those two were working together, and my genius has been there the longest, and that is the last one that I'm listening to up until recently. And so it's like, oh, and it's not like blindly listening, but how do I have to be differently? I have to change my patterns. I have to choose to be different. I have to change my habits. I have to change my judger path. And that means that I have to be aware of the choice. That means I have to be aware of the moment. And that is becoming more aware of the moment that I'm in, that, oh, the moment is right now. The moment is my choice. My choice is to live the life that I am choosing. And I was choosing the life that I was living without choosing it. It was like, oh, that was my judger path. And so I worked a judger for me to know the feeling of that, to be able to notice when it came up, congratulate it when the judger showed up, and look around like, how would I do with it? Like, what would I change? Not change with it, but what would I learn? Here it is. Not this is what I got out of it, was like, what could I learn from stepping through that scared self. Like it was worth the pain and the effort to step into that. What is the greatest lesson that I can produce with that? And then learn from that lesson to go into the next one. And that is the difference of wherever we're at, of noticing. If we can notice the choice, we can choose to be positive or negative. It doesn't matter. It's your choice. I just say, like, I'm going to choose positive. If I have the choice, I'm going to choose positive, and my negative was part of my judger self. And I'm going to say no more of that. I'm going to rather choose positive, which means I get to create, which means I'm going to learn, which is like, oh, what can I produce out of this situation? What can we demonstrate? And today I thought a great demonstration was Cindy and I in the join up. That was amazing. Cindy, thank you. Where we worked this, where you toss a line to the choice map, where the choice map has helped you in your listening, has helped me in my listening, and just a demonstration of what we can do when we're listening. And so part of this is not only listening out in the world, but then listening to ourselves. And for me, the language that I can put onto that is to listen to my ego self, which is the one that I've listened to for 35 years, meaning after 7, this brain took over, was captain. Math found it. Then it was sports. And I found that I could get through sports by getting attraction, that people would like me for that. So I was validating that I was good enough by shooting free throws. I was a little guy, so I was building my identity and structure as a small guy. So basketball, we would go outside and play basketball, and I would always get beat by my bigger cousin. Always, like, he was taller, bigger, a year older than me, always beat me up, but I always came back fighting and always came back fighting. And so I would shoot I would shoot free throws because I wasn't good enough. I came from a small school, a small town. I wasn't in the clique. I just never was big enough. I never was good enough. And so all of that is in my head of demonstrating and proving to myself that I could be part of a team, that I could build it out, that I could be good at what I did, and that I would continue to seek validation of what good was meant in the identity and the structure in the world that I was creating all the way around me, all the way through high school and this way. And it was like, oh, it would work out. I would try different identities on and become different ways. And college created its own way, all around living, all the way to the point of living the life around this, what the world created was success for me. And that was my story of what I created for success, until I looked at it and said, oh, that is not living my good life. That is living other people's good life. And then it was a wake up to say, like, oh, look, I do have a choice. And not only could I listen to the other choices, is like I could listen to the genius part of me when I could separate them. It's like, oh, the ego side, the fear side of me. There's a fear, the instinctual, to keep me safe, and then the genius part is like, with so much rapid change that is happening around us, that was the possibility for these to communicate together, because the ego would not be able to listen in any other way. And so to just notice that in this book was a great demonstration, even for young kids, to notice where all these questions pop up. And where they pop up is the judger questions include, what's wrong with me? Victim. See the victim orientation to this. Whose fault is it? It's victim, looking for it out there. Look, the judger is giving all the power away, giving all of our power away, all of the creative power away, that we are the creative, that we are life, that we are amazing, that we are creators, because we're creating the life that we're living now. Whether we love it or not is our choice, because of why we're creating it. And why are they so stupid? See, it's out there. It's their fault. It's their fault. We're not taking responsibility. So another avoiding, another uncomfortable situation is responsibility. How can I prove that I'm right? Like validation, again, part of what I was talking about. Haven't we been there, done that? Why bother? It's like, oh, all of these things. You don't belong. You're insignificant. You're not capable. You're not good enough. You haven't done enough of this. You haven't proven yourself. All of these, the results of a judger mindset is a mood of pessimism, stress, and limitation. It's limiting, it's contracting, it's pulling away, it's heavy, it's weight. It's what we do now. It's a mindset that's judgmental, it's reactive, it's inflexible, and it's relating with attack or defensive behaviors. A victim, yes. See how a judger is all inside of that. And then we all have our own pattern of this that we've evolved into. And it's like, to notice yours means that you can help unpackage it for you, create your story of lessons for the world, because that would help others. So a learner's correct question, as I am oriented a little bigger, like, yes, the learner's the beginning, it's a curiosity, it's a wonder, but then it's like, to create is what's possible next with that, the next level up above the learner here. The learner question is, what do I want? Yes, it's like, what do I want? Oh, I want to create a life that I love. Yeah, see how that? And then it's like, oh, what works? We're over here like, oh, what works? Like, what's been successful? Notice that, oh, what's been successful is a pattern as well. And what has been a failure is a pattern, is to not do the failure ones, but do more of the successful. What are my facts and what can I learn? What information do I have? What new self am I now? What am I listening to? And how can I improve? And how can I learn something here? What are my choices? Is like here to notice, like, what choice do I have? I can go this way. I can automatically do that, but I can do this. And what might happen as that? Maybe I don't need to know what the answers are. What does a validator mean for me? All of these things. What is a blamer? Responsibility, like these things that we can try on for ourselves so that we have our story about them. What actions make sense? What's possible? And all of these are a mood of optimism, hope, and possibilities. It's a mindset that is thoughtful, understanding, flexible, and it's related to connecting and collaboration. So imagine this working with other people. It's like, oh, so much better working with other people if we are in a learner or creative orientation, because it's relating to connecting and collaboration, where the judger mindset, where we find ourselves, where we don't want to join up, is in a mindset that's judgmental, reactive, inflexible, on the attack or the defense, as everybody's coming after it, right? It's like, oh, these are the demonstrations. The separation of these is the difference. That's for us to notice that our uncomfortable patterns, so that we can notice them for us. We can help understand them for ourselves, pull them apart, and notice to choose to create something different. This is the slowest way that I know how to do it. But it's the start. The recode is the fastest, but this choice has to be here. We have to choose to create for ourselves. Otherwise, the recode will not work. And the choice here is to choose that you have everything in you. You are not broken. You do not need to be fixed. You are the creative power force. You are creating the life that you live. We've just been creating it, giving our power away. The hard work mentality, the middle class. It's we're entitled. We're not entitled, but there's part of entitlement that's been growing in that. But there's all these things that aren't working with it, and it's because of the identities and the patterns. It's because of this judging. It's this judging pattern that we're in. That's to become out of it, is to notice, to be changed, to be something different, and that is the direction that humanity goes. Because this is where we collaborate and work and learn the most. This is where we create the future together. And then we can learn how to create, like to create. And creation is the blending of being and doing. It has to do with intentions and outcomes, and a how-to strategy, like a creation strategy, like how to create five steps to create what you love. Like that is all inside of creating whatever it is. And just happens that if everyone created what they loved, imagine what the world would be like. Would there ever be an apology if everyone was living the life that they love? No. Everyone would be going for what they wanted rather than avoiding it. Creating the life that we love. We're creating our life now. It's like, let's create the one that we love. Let's choose that one. So the choice map, right? The judger questions, the choice always now. You can find yourself like you always find yourself somewhere on the path up here. You can even be up here in a choice path, and it's like, oh, I can get sucked back down into the judger path, and this judger path becomes like a vacuum, right? A vortex. It's spinning around. It's a black hole. It'll pull all your information. It'll pull all your energy into it. They say like negativity adds, negativity is this, it's not growth. It's more dying, right? Retracting, not amplifying. And it just ends up in a pit of mud, right? Sand. And so what we can do is help people notice when we're on the judger path. So what lines could we toss to help people onto the judger path, onto the learner path? And part of what I was uncovering here and thankful for working up with the join up was my needing to know. It's like, oh, I always needed to know, and I was not leaving any room for creativity when I needed to know. And so I was practicing my uncomfortable pattern of needing to know and to let go of needing to know. And in that was tossing my hat over the wall. I was like, oh, you had to know this. And I did it with Jason. It's like, oh my goodness, like I don't know where I'm going to go. I have to have this planned out. I have to have this structured for this whole thing. I have to have this structured to this standard, to this quality. And it's like, I don't know. But this was my take on the judger path, the choice map. Imagine that you're standing at the crossroads on the left side of the choice map. Something has just happened. Now you have to solve a problem or make a decision. That's now, right here, where we're going to start. Maybe it's related to an important goal in some area in your life. Perhaps it's with your business or your career. Maybe it's in a relationship with family, friends, or colleagues. Maybe it's about your health, finances, or plans for the future. Do this experiment while you think about that situation. First, ask yourself judger questions. What's wrong with me? Whose fault is it? Why are they so stupid? How can I prove that I'm right? And notice how they affect your mood and confidence. Notice what it feels like. What does it take you? Now breathe. Switch. And instead ask yourself the learner question. What do I want? What works? What are my choices? What action steps make sense? What can I learn? And what was it like the second time? That is your genius. That is your heart. That is your brain. Your heart brain. That is your superconscious. That is your heart. That is your genius. That is your passion. That is your heart brain. That is your superconscious. That is the one that is saying, yes, go for it. That is the life that we love. That is in the direction of, and we have been hiding from it. And our automatic has been to hide from that, has been to set us up on this judger path to keep us safe from avoiding that, from all of that that we're afraid of. That will happen when we step into living the life that we love. By choosing to live the learner path, to choose to live the life that we love of what it can create, and to know that it is. And the other path is always available. It is the baseline. It is the foundation. This other choice is just better. It is just not better. It is just different. It is change. Change is choice. Choice is being and doing to produce outcomes. Choice is creation. Creation is blending being and doing to outcomes. And there is where we create in the present the life that we love, towards a life that we love, which is the long horizon. And everything else, as long as we go into that, we bring it under our umbrella and say, yes, what do I want to take with me in the life that I love? It's like, why not? Why take all this other baggage with you? It's like, why take on all of these comfortable patterns, right? Why take them with you? It's all baggage. It's like, oh, we can let them go, not fix them, not fix them. Just let them go, let them be. What can I learn from that? Learning from that lets that go. And your genius, your passion, your heart, your superconscious can help move those patterns out of the way in the best, most appropriate way that there is. But the brain, the conscious brain, the ego brain has to surrender to not having to know it all. And that is how we can, that is how I have begun to listen to my other brains, my other parts of me that communicate differently. They communicate in feelings, they communicate in symbols, pictures, and stories. And so you combine them together with a brain that has been captain. That has done pretty good. That has done really good of living the life that's here. It's like, oh, but to surrender that one, I've been doing it alone for too long. We've all been doing it alone for too long. And that is in a certain judger path. Well, it's my not needing to know path, maybe. Like, I think we all have different paths of all sorts of things. It's like, one is like, remember I said there's a judger and a validator is where I was starting for me to open up my alpha male. And then having to know was now the next one. And then the other one that I noticed was blamer, like blamer and avoider, blamer, avoider. There's a few others that I've listed here. It doesn't matter. I mean, I've got a whole list of them here that I've been working on, thinking about. Judger, blamer, avoider, reasoner. I think that's needing to know. Controller, protector. Those are some different other. You get part of these as part of the reaction. Like, where do I go in my reaction of my uncomfortable pattern? Oh, I got it. Like, no problem. I got it myself. And so that was really like a big. Yeah. Anyway. So that wraps up the choice map and how I've been thinking about the choice map, how I've been being. And so here's like my way of sharing how I've been demonstrating the choice map. And as much as I can is to just accept that, yes, I'm a validation. I continue to have validation, but when I check and ask, is like, oh, is that coming from a validation point of view? I can see if there's a difference between the two in the feelings and my intents, my intentions. And I just learned that and noticed that. And the other way is like, then when I can set up for a recode, I have these other personalities up and aware and lined up so that they're ready to be when I choose the recode or the superconscious to help with it. It can be in alignment. I mean, all of this is in to be in alignment with what we care about, with what we want to produce, with a life that we love, with people we love, people I love, to do that with. And this listening, this creates our structures in which we are building the view of the world. And as we work them, then we can understand other people and be empathetic with where other people are, other scared selves are at in their story around overcoming their lenses. As more and more of this opens up for people and they see a bigger picture that they are the predominant creators and that we are giving our power away by being and surrendering to the victim, surrendering to being broken, surrendering that I need to be fixed, and surrendering to all the big narratives out there that come here, do this thing, buy it from here, learn this. And what we're really doing is just continuing in that problem solving victim orientation loop rather than stepping into not needing to know. And just needing to know what a life I love feels like. What does it feel to be authentically alive? What does alive mean? What does life mean? And to feel that so that I know the direction in which I go and that I can have confidence and belief in that I am listening to my true self. And when I don't, like there's a lesson to be learned from both. And not to judge, because that is the automatic pattern, but rather to celebrate and to share and to hear your story, because your story can help me unlock my stories. And the more that we can share, the more that we can get out the message, the more that we can create, the more lives that we can live together, and how they intersect just becomes better. Just create them different, like not better. It's sorry, I keep using better in the future terms because it's like, oh, it's not like we're not going to create them to be better. It's not like we're going to create it. It's like, no, we want what we have now. We just want more of it. And it's like, oh, as we learn and we go through it, it's like, we're going to redefine what better is. And I was thinking about that. Is like, I love a warm shower at the end of the day, especially after a hard day, or if it's cold outside, or been outside working in the evening, and come in and it's like, oh, a warm shower is just amazing. Just before bed, a warm shower is amazing for me. But I can't stand there forever. Like I couldn't live my life inside of that shower. It was like, I would never enjoy it, right? And two, um, it was like I wouldn't know no other way. I wouldn't know any difference, right? So it's like there's two spectrums of life to live, but it's like, oh, I'm not going to choose the painful one, which is what we are doing. Like we are choosing that because we don't know how to get out of our loops, our patterns, our cycles, our unavoidable, our unconfrontable, our uncomfortable patterns. We're afraid to face those uncomfortable patterns that just have us avoiding what we really the learner path, and avoiding and just living our life as it is, and making up the stories that we're in, and saying like, wait, I am responsible for the stories that I am creating. And it's like, I'm not even paying, like, how many stories am I paying attention to that I'm in? And it's like, oh, that becomes noticing where I'm at in the moment, to begin to listen to one of the brains.